Shalom, Ka'ala Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Ruach. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of the Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect, where the house of David be born again in this generation. And Shalom to the 130 Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing their true heritage were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the latest grandstanding being done in the march towards World War III, or what the Bible refers to as Armageddon. But before we get into that, let's read this. This is Psalms 10 and 5. His ways are always grievous. Thy judgments are far above out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. Well, recently, you had claims made by these two Edomite nations, which are soon to be at war with each other. The nation of UK, right, which is predominantly ran by the Edomites, and the nation of Russia, which is another dominated nation of the Edomites. Okay, it tells you here in the article, it says Russia planning lightning war to take out Ukraine's capital. UK's Johnson in dramatic claim. All right, so this devil here, Boris Johnson, is claiming that Russia has plans to attack the Ukraine, right, in a lightning-like attack, right? Or other catchy phrase, kind of like a blitzkrieg, like the Germans used to do, right? And ultimately, why they're doing this, or why they're talking this up, is because you see the Western powers, right? The whore and the beast the whore rides upon, that being America and the EU NATO system, it is trying to rouse up the world in a fervor to go to war, right? It's trying to create that impetus that they need, so that way they can be seen as the heroes when they create this war, right? Just as how they said that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, they said that Afghanistan was harboring terrorists, right? It's the same ploy over and over again, and these devils, they're now using this tactic against one of their own nations, right? And I mean the Edomite nation, right? Because you see what's happening right now is that the Lord is putting the Egyptian versus the Egyptian, right? He's having the house of Satan fight against the house of Satan, right? And this is how these Edomite nation will ultimately lose its rule over the world, right? Well, ultimately it's going to lose it by when the Messiah comes back and destroys it. But this is how their downfall begins for the most part, right? They're going to start infighting. As Apostle Kabar says, they're going to be like reservoir dogs fighting amongst themselves, taking each other out. Right? Well, let's read the article. It says, as we detailed earlier, the EU Foreign Policy Chief, Joseph Borrell, during Monday's statement to the press, appeared to openly mock the UK and US for the dramatic announcements of embassy personnel evacuations due to threat of a Russian invasion of Ukraine. He said there's no need to dramatize the situation, given there's high hopes that ongoing diplomacy will prevail. Moscow, too, has continued to condemn what it's called disinformation hysteria prevailing in the West, which is fueling the crisis further. And that's true, right? Because you see, ultimately these elites, they want this war, right? They want to puff, at their enemies, right? And the Western powers see Russia, at least on the public stage, as their enemy, right? But ultimately, in the back channels and the true elites, they're all working together, right? When you get into Russia and you look back to its recent history of the Bolshevik revolution, you'll see that Amalek, right, the so-called Jews, were all over that, right? And ultimately, Putin, his mother's a so-called Jew, man. So he's all tied in, right? But ultimately, they got to put a show on for the world to show that they're against each other. Now, in this case here, the US and the UK and the Western powers, EU and the NATO, they've been, like I said, fomenting this, as it says here, dramatization of what's going on in Ukraine. Now, yes, Russia is building up its military, or moving its military at the border, right? But ultimately, it's because they're doing a lot of it in response to what America is doing, what Spain and these other countries are doing, right? And right now, ultimately, what's going on is that the Lord is making moves on His end, right? You see, He is putting the thought and the desire into these devils' hearts, right? And let's read this. This is Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh Bashem Shai, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever He will, right? And the Lord, He wants war, right? He wants to bring forth prophecy, the prophecy of the valley of Jehoshaphat, right? Which is ultimately, it means the valley of Yahweh's judgment, right? Because He wants to ultimately gather all the armies of the world right there in the Middle East by Israel, okay? And in doing so, the armies are going to be positioned in the place where they're going to meet the Messiah upon His second coming, and where the Lord will ultimately destroy the armies of the world, okay? And all this right here, all this back and forth between the Western powers and Russia is simply a step to go in that direction, right? Let's continue. But it seems London is content to hype things further, with Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Monday citing gloomy intelligence from UK intel officials warning that Russia is planning a lightning war to take out Ukraine's capital of Kiev. Johnson said in a message directed at Russia that an offensive would be a disastrous step and bloody business. Look at that, man. Now, those are some fighting words, man. You know, even though it's hidden behind their grin, you know, it would be bloody business. That right there, man. He's talking about there would be a lot of death. You know, it says, while confirming that some British diplomatic staff have begun to exit the embassy in Kiev and depart of the country, Johnson affirmed, "We do think it prudent to make some changes now." And when he said in dramatic fashion, "The intelligence is very clear that there are 60 Russian battle groups on the borders of Ukraine. The plan for a lightning war that could take out Kiev is one that everyone can see. We need to make it very clear to the Kremlin, to Russia, that would be a disastrous step." He added during the comments that from a Russian perspective, it is going to be a painful, violent, and bloody business. He concluded with, "I think it's very important that people in Russia understand that this could be a new Chechnya." All right, and Chechnya was a horrible war fought over there in Eastern Europe, man. A lot of people died, and and this is why Boris Johnson is ultimately trying to scare those people, man. All right, it says, continue. It says, more than just issuing Jingos rhetoric, threats that claim the UK has over the past week been flying military plane loads of weaponry into Kiev, something Russia has condemned as a highly dangerous escalation. This is mostly believed to be anti-tank and anti-armor systems, missiles, and munition. And then right here it says, allies are sending more ships and jets to enhance NATO defensive deployment in Eastern Europe. A strong sign of Allied solidarity. Offers include F-16 jets to Lithuania, troops to Romania, F-35 jets to Bulgaria, frigates heading to the Black Sea, right? And you see, these are all the nations from NATO that are participating. This right here, deployment in Eastern Europe, man. This right here is getting all this weaponry and all these, armed troops sent over there to the Middle East, right? Because right there, Eastern Europe is only a short way away from the Middle East, which ultimately is where this war effort is going to ultimately lead to, you know? It says, over the weekend, the Kremlin accused Britain of unnecessarily stoking tensions, even as London remained on the sidelines of the direct diplomacy currently taking place, which has invoked talks between the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Geneva. Further Normandy formats talks will be held in Paris this week, involving the Russians, Ukrainians, French, and Germans. According to the news wire, Biden will also hold a call with European leaders today. Biden to hold call European leaders in Ukraine today. So basically, you see, so these are all the rumors of wars that was prophesied to happen in the Bible, man. You know, these are all the things that are coming to play, right? But all this is, all the peace talks and all this stuff, it's all going to fail, man, because you see what's ultimately going to happen is that they're simply going to build up an escalation for war. So even if this war doesn't kick off and it ultimately ends up, you know, cooling off, what's going to happen is all those troops are going to still be in the region, right? This is ultimately going to end in Esau's, buildup in the Middle East or in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, right? And why is Esau doing this? Why is he ultimately falling back on his weaponry and his guns and everything? Well, it's because it's in his spirit. You see, his progenitor, Esau, right? The person who these white people come from, there was a prophecy and a blessing that was given to him, man. It can be found in Genesis 27:9. And Isaac, his father, answered, and this is Isaac talking to Esau, and this is Genesis 27:39, and Isaac, his father, answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven from above. And here's the point. And by the sword shall thy live, and shall serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. But this here is the point I wanted to get, man. So these devils, man, and everything they do, all their outcomes, everything that they put power behind, man, it's all by the power of the sword, right? Be it through physical weaponry or diplomatic, maneuvers, man, that ultimately give them the upper hand, right? This is the sword that these devils are ultimately maneuvering through, man. But again, this is all prophecy, right? From the very beginning up to the very end, which the Lord said would come. This is Matthew 24:6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise up against nation. That's what's happening right here. And kingdom against kingdom. Same thing. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Right? So you see there, Akim, we're in the very beginning of hard times that are about to befall us, man. So, with all that being said, it's time to, get serious about this truth, man. Time to, pray up, turn up, as the apostles have coined this year. And ultimately, man, just prepare for these hard times, man. If that means stocking up a bit of food so that way you could weather this coming famine, cool, right? This inflation is also going to hit hard, so it's going to make things more expensive. So if you could, buy things that you need more now, more power to you. So hopefully this video was edifying. I'll keep time. Next time, I want to give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai B'Hashem B'Kodash. Shalom.